Good.
Okay, I'd like to call the Budget Committee meeting of Thursday, May 4th to order. And first on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
Approve the agenda.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you all. And then next we have appointment of the chair and the vice chair. So we will first accept nominations for the chair of the Budget Committee. Agreement one.
Who would like to be chair? I guess that's a start with. Is there anyone who would like to be chair? It would seem to me to be someone who has some experience as a chair of a budget committee. Nobody?
Paul did a great job last year.
Yeah, let's reappoint Paul.
I don't know, Paul,
Okay.
but I'll take everyone else's.
Yeah,
I was really hoping to focus and listen more, but I'm happy to be chair.
get it. We want you as chair.
Pardon me?
Forget it. We want you as chair.
So
There you go.
somebody nominate him before he backs up.
I nominate Paul.
Second.
Okay,
Well, next year you're gonna need a bigger screen to hide behind.
Yeah,
That wasn't working.
my notes.
okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, congratulations, Paul.
Thank you.
And then next we have approval of the vice chair.
Who was the vice chair?
Sam was the vice chair last time.
Okay.
And don't make any, that didn't set any precedents.
Anyone who'd
I
like?
thought.
Tim, would you?
Tim, you want another job?
Sure.
Okay, I nominate Tim as vice chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
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 Congratulations, Tim,
And thank you.
and thank you. And next we have, I have a question for point of order. So the people that weren't on the budget committees last year should not be voting for the minutes. Approval of the minutes, is that correct?
Probably.
Of course. yeah.
Okay. Okay, so first, we're considering a consent of all of the budget committee meetings. All the people that were here last year, who's voting on it.
I move that the consent calendar.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
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 Yes, for the one meeting I attended.
And as an official budget committee member? No. Okay, then you should not.
Okay, then I don't.
Okay, so we have abstaining, just so we make sure we get this right. Lisa, myself, Marlene, Gary. And Dorian, were you on the budget committee last year?
I was not.
Okay, and Dorian. Right, I know, that's why we're abstaining. You weren't, okay,
On the next
okay, you got it all?
read from this,
That's it, okay.
and the staff report will say,
So then, Paul, do you take it away?
and then I'll give a report after you read that.
Great.
Let's be patient with all of us.
Yeah.
I remember this one last year.
Okay, here we go.
There we go. At this time pursuant to ORS 221.770, I will open a public hearing in order to give the citizens of Cannon Beach the opportunity to comment on the use of state revenue sharing funds in the city of Cannon Beach's budget fiscal year 2023-2024. Staff, present your report.
Okay, thank you.
Good job, Paul.
So we do this every year. It's a requirement from the state of Oregon that we give public an opportunity to comment on the uses of the state revenue sharing that we receive. It consists of highway funds, liquor tax, cigarette tax, marijuana tax, and then another item related to liquor. And that in the budget, and Schedule A before you. Grand total of those $201,373. And those are the estimates that you will see in the budget as we go along. And So I don't know if we have any citizen comment or not. But that's my report.
Is there any member of the public wishing to comment on the proposed use of state revenue sharing for fiscal 2023? Yes, 20.
Lori, where's the agenda?
It's Schedule A on it's in your agenda. Part of the agenda, like the last page, few pages. Looks like this.
Very last 2 pages. You're on. So go down. Oh, excuse me.
Here, I can get you one here.
I found it.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah.
Hand up on Zoom, so I'm not sure if that's public comment or what, but Ed has his hand up.
For public comment specifically on this.
So someone has their hand up?
Ed Johnson had his hand up. We assume we can ask.
Number 3 on the agenda, I think.
Oh, yeah, that's what I would.
Public comment.
Everyone good?
Mhm.
If there's no further discussion, I will close the public hearing at this time. We go to budget. Did we talk about the budget message?
Number 3 first on the agenda.
Public comment pursuant to state requirements. City of Cannon Beach Budget Committee will receive public comment on the City of Cannon Beach proposed budget for fiscal year 2023.
Paul, there is a hand up on the.
Okay,
Ed Johnson.
Ed Johnson.
Can you hear us, Ed? Ed, you'll have to unmute yourself.
That was always my job, was to mute Ed Johnson during staff meetings.
Very difficult to do. So you did.
I did it.
So far, he's not unmuted himself.
Probably talking.
I sent my text.
You text them.
Yeah.
And unmute yourself.
Ed, can you hear us?
You should be able to.
If you can hear us, you need to unmute yourself.
Or look at a cell phone.
It's the one thing I can't do on the, there we go.
Am I on?
Yeah. On now, bud.
Okay. Thank you, Budget Committee and council members. I really appreciate this moment, as I have many times before, standing before this body. My appeal is to retain the line item in the last year's budget, the 22-23 budget, which allowed Sea Turtles Ever have a grant for $10,000. Last year, we completed that cycle. We were very successful in the amount of material we collected. Mark has provided, rather late moment, a copy of how we spent that $10,000. We'd like to have at least the same amount. Mark has the documents you may have in front of you right now. It says, shows about $25,000 we spent on the entire project.
Hard copy.
So I just want to make sure that we are included as a part of that budget that you will be discussing and passing before the end of the, for next year's 23-24 cycle. And Mark is here to answer any questions subsequently if in need.
So Lori, your email said we were going to have a hard copy of that.
Yeah, have them right here.
Okay,
Can I ask Ed a question?
sure.
Ed,
Yes.
did you guys apply through the regular channel, you know, the way you used to apply before you were getting a line item?
Well, last, I was under the impression,
Hard copy.
we are no longer in that protocol. That we were just going before, since we did submit one last year and there was no action taken relative to the Parks and Community Service route, that everything was assumed. And since we're now a part of the line item process, that we would be, you know, they wouldn't be allowing us to receive a grant from Parks and Community Service.
Did you contact Parks and Community Services to see if that was the case?
I can clarify,
Okay, good.
since I was on the Parks and Community Services Committee last year, we denied them a grant due to the fact that last year's budget or the current budget, they were a line item. So they applied for the Parks and Community Services grant last year during the regular cycle, and they were denied since it was a line item
Okay,
through
and
the
what,
city budget.
the regular line item to continue or not? Was there any stipulation at being a line item?
Well, in the minutes, there was a stipulation that they would give better financial reports.
Oh, okay, but
And as far as I know, this is the first, what we received today is the first financial that we've received from them.
Is that the first information you submitted, Mark?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I've kind of read a lack of contact of what the protocol is when you submit, who to submit to. And I put in quite a few phone calls for some direction from you, Bruce, and I know you're super busy and we're a little thick. But I never could get anybody to kind of get to that. I probably called half a dozen times. To find out who I submit to and who I'm contacted at the city. Because I had a lot of questions too. And looking for a little bit of direction from the city, but I couldn't get contact. I didn't have a contact.
I would have recalled if you'd called me a half a dozen times. I don't recall that. I'm not saying it didn't happen. But you could always just send it to me or to Jennifer.
I contacted Jennifer and she said that you would be his contact in the evenings and that I should try, and I tried at least several times and I couldn't get a hold of you. And I wasn't sure how else to get a hold of you. But I did contact Jennifer and she told me you were super busy, which I understand you got a lot on your plate. But so I had a lack of communication because I couldn't get a contact.
Well, the next time we can try to email.
Email you.
okay, so I just want to be clear. So the reason you didn't apply for a Parks and Community Services grant was because you were told last year that you got a line item, so therefore you didn't qualify for Parks and Community Services. And this year, you were hoping to get a line item again, and that's why you didn't make an application, right?
True.
Is that right? Okay, I'm just trying to get it straight.
Last year, I was the one that recommended that they get a line item. And there was a lot of discussion about that. And so the idea was that we would do it as a line item and see what kind of results to obtain with that. And so the only thing that's happened is that I notified Ed and Mark that based on what we've seen, that I was not going to recommend as the manager a line item in this year's budget. It doesn't mean that the council can't do it. But based on the results, I did not think that we were getting what we should have been getting for the.
What results? I'm not familiar with the results, so I
There
wonder.
we received and we actually photographed many of the bags that had come in. And a lot of this discussion started as microplastics and then it became microplastics / debris, but there was mostly debris in the bags and not a lot of plastics, not even, and again, I don't know how you can see a microplastic, but I don't know how you can determine whether or not there's microplastics in the bag. But there was not a lot of plastic, there was a lot of debris. And that was not what I thought that the effort was about. I mean, people were excited that we had somebody that would be able to pick up microplastics and we didn't see that as a result.
So you thought that was I don't know. I mean, I know people who are actually on the ground working for that project and I know how hard they worked and I know how much effort they put in. And my understanding was that actually was a successful season as far as getting microplastics. So
Absolutely.
That's why I'm here to comment on operations on the ground, because I was on the beach 27 out of the 62 days myself. And I'd like to explain a little bit about what Mr. Zinganis is saying. Is that okay if I have a moment to comment?
Sure.
So as far as
Come on up
introduce yourself.
and make sure that you introduce yourself and your
we
mailing
were
address.
super successful and the beach was a disaster last year.
Name and address, please.
R Ford. 36286 Highway 26. Eastside, Oregon, and I am Director of Operations for Sea Turtles Forever on the ground. That's our CEO and I run ground operations. The beach was a complete disaster last year. The amount of microplastic on the beach was incredible. We ran 62 days and we did super successful job of absolutely pristine work of getting everything. We worked extra hard. We had a complaint about the debris, organic debris. So I spent hours and hours and hours and had my team spend hours pulling out organic debris so we would be delivering less. But that goes in different degrees of density. Sometimes you have more organic debris that's been embedded with the plastic. Sometimes you have less. For us to be really efficient and move at the most efficient rate, we used to just take all the organic debris that we filter out, except for the large wood, and we'd throw the large wood out. I consulted with Neil Main about this, and it's been a question. Years it's been a question. Well, we're taking our organic debris too, and not just Neil Main, but Neil Main he really has watched us since our very beginning. And what he has always told me, take the organic debris too, Mark. You don't want that in there. You don't want that organic debris on the beach. If you're going to the trouble of filtering the whole beach, leave it pristine. The organic debris that's been embedded with the microplastics is potentially absorb some of those POPs, and we don't need it on the beach. It's not like an environmental benefit for to have pine needles, small pieces of wood, eggshell casings, all that other organic debris, grasses. It's no environmental benefit, and it's faster for us to just take it. So as far as the bags, opening the bags and looking in the bags and taking pictures of what's in the bag, the plastic is a lot denser and settles in the bottom of the bag. We seal those bags up because they off gas. That's why they're sealed in those dark plastic bags. That amount of plastic, even if there's a 25-pound bag of debris and say 10 pounds of it is plastic, that's condensed into a 10-pound block of this toxic debris. And it off gases. So we seal it in those bags. So none of that off gassing gets out, but it settles into the bottom because it's denser than the light wood and pine needles. So that all rises to the top. So when you open the bag, you're going to see the debris at the top, and the plastics are all going to be settled into the bottom of the bag.
Are you the one who gave the pictures to
No,
where did they come from?
they came from
We did the pictures ourselves to see what was in the bags.
Someone from the city opened the bags and checked them.
But I am, our CEO Ed asked me to be here to answer questions like this, because I'm on the ground. You know, basically almost every day with our guys, making sure everything's running right, making sure this year we went a whole nother step of clean. We went through every beach and we went back again 2 weeks later to each beach and got anything that we could see that we'd left to leave them absolutely pristine.
Yeah.
Because we had no budget to work. And so.
Can I intrude here, and make a comment? I think it's very germane.
Go ahead.
Okay, before Mark had every, could do this, conduct his operation, his screening process, the state of Oregon's Parks and Recreation Director, who was in charge of the beach programs, he came down with Mark and interviewed him, watched the entire process, and gave him a license. And he has to retain that license on a regular basis. So for anybody to be critical of the byproduct where we're getting too much organic matter on the top of the bag, they really don't understand. And I think if you really wanted to get somebody down here, if you want to go to the next degree, I think you gas state parks, because they're somewhat impartial, but it's their beaches. You know, we use their beaches, but they have the legal authority to allow people to come down there. Now, as being former member and director of the Haystack Rock program, you're not supposed to take shells off the beach. You know, so here we are, we have a byproduct that includes shells, plastic, wood, you know, grass, needles. So we can't take that out. Marcus explained that clearly well, but I think this could be totally resolved by bringing state parks down here. If that's the one degree you want to go to verify how effective our program is. Besides that, we're in beaches all over the world conducting the same procedure.
Thank you, Ed.
He asked me to be here to specific questions.
So with this, when the bags were opened and the city looked in them and saw all the debris at that time, was there anything explained about explaining now?
I was trying to contact Mr. St. Dennis. I could never get him. I called
Okay, well,
Jennifer. And
yeah.
So I didn't, you know, what I really needed was a contact of the city.
I know, but you know, better communication would be great, because I think there's just been a huge misunderstanding from a lot of people who, you know, who thought that all the woody debris in the bags was a negative thing for the program. And you're explaining it now to us, but it'd be nice if we'd all had this information a long time ago. I mean, it's just frustrating to me, because I think you guys are doing an incredible job. And, you know, there's misinformation or confusion, and it's not, none of it was necessary if there'd been better communication.
Who can I communicate with?
Well, you can write an email, you can write a letter, you know, if you can't get someone on the phone, there are other ways of communicating besides, you know, because everyone's super busy. So, or you know, a letter would have been great to explaining it. Then that gets rid of the misunderstanding, you know.
Bruce actually asked me to call him at the last time I was here at a meeting, and
Okay,
I
but
could never get him.
okay, well, be that as it may, I don't think that's even important right now, because there's lots of other ways of communicating besides calling. And I hate the fact that there's been, you know, misunderstanding. It really bothers me. Because I know you guys did a great job. You know.
I have a question for Bruce, if I can.
Mhm.
If this organization didn't pick up the debris, does the city have some kind of operation that picks up the debris on the beach?
No, and actually talking to Haystack Rock program, we don't want to pick that up. That's all habitat. So going and picking up the grasses and you know, all that, that's all stuff that supports the creatures that live there. What we're trying to get rid of is microplastics. and the bags were full and it was all woody debris. I can have pictures, video here for the next meeting if you want. Take a look at what we actually found. And the only question here is I made a decision that based on what we saw, that it was not microplastics that was being removed. And that was what we were excited about. And so I just said, I cannot, I recommended last year that you would get a line item. And I told that I'm very disappointed that this hasn't worked out either. But it is, I can't recommend a line item based on what we're seeing. And so if the council wants to continue that, that's, I got no problem with that. I'm just saying that I can't recommend it based on what I've seen. And I would ask also that next year, if you do continue this work, that you don't pick up all that debris. Pick up microplastics is what we're looking for, and not the grasses and things like that. That's habitat.
Okay, I have, Neil Main's one of the top biologists in the county.
Mhm.
He says, and has told me for years, take that stuff, it's not habitat. So who's the expert at Haystack Rock that says that that's habitat? Because I have really top biologists and other biologists I work with that say that's not habitat, has no effect on ecology. If it's been embedded with the plastics, it's probably toxic too. Take it all. I mean, I have experts telling me, take it all. And I've had other people ask me to take it all.
Well, that I can believe, because people want to see a nice clean beach, but that's not necessarily a healthy beach.
Mark, I'm new to this topic, so just a point of clarification. I do see blue stuff on the beach, frequently blue, that's maybe 2 to 3 millimeters long. Is that what we're talking about? Or is it sounded like the micromet, you couldn't even see it. I can see the blues.
No, you can see all this is up to 5 mil. And you walk down to Well Park right now and you'll see. And you walk down to Well Park when we're done, pristine beach. Left Shirley Park, same thing. Right now, Well Park, walk down there, it's covered with it right now from this winter. It comes over.
So, I mean, one solution would be, I think, getting rid of that, if in fact you get rid of it, is a really great thing. Let's publicize it. Let's see what the public said. If we get rid of it, let's see what the public says. If the public comes back and said, no, it's still there, then it didn't work. But I know everybody that walks the beach notices that stuff.
Well, I think that we're not going to resolve the woody debris issue here. Obviously,
Yeah,
we
it's not
need
woody debris,
we
it's
need
the
a
blue stuff.
what we need to hear from some biologist. I want to hear from someone whether it seems like there's controversy over whether it's good to pick it up or not good for the health of the beach. And I'd love to hear, from, I'm certainly not a biologist. I don't know. I can't answer that question. So I'd like to hear from somebody who is an expert, but and then make the decision whether that gets picked up or not.
Neil Main's good.
Well, I know Neil Main.
You know Neil?
Oh, yeah. And I think he's wonderful, but I'd like to hear from Parks or somebody like that too,
I
not
think we
just
need
one
to involve
person.
Oregon State Parks.
Yes, I think we really do, to figure out if that is something that should be picked up or not.
Karen?
Are you only here that last year I put Ed and Mark in touch with a group of college students back on the East Coast, engineers and a group of marine biologists that had built a unit that is used with water that does exactly what Mark is doing. But the difference is the machine actually causes the plastic to float and the other organisms to stay on the beach. We offered to trial that machine out here in this area. They sent one to Hawaii, and I got a hold of my old engineering team over there and asked them, how was it? Was it worth the trial? Did it work effectively? And share the information with Mark and Ed. I think that opportunity was far less than $10,000 that we could look at even purchasing that machine if the trial turns out to be beneficial. and it leaves those healthy things on the beach that we don't want removed. And so I invited them to get together with those students and explore trialing that machine out there. That might be something that we ask them to do this year and bring the information back to us.
That would be great.
He actually was out here and came and worked, with the guy that invented that machine, and worked with me at Crescent Beach. And there's a lot of issues with that machine as far as how it operates. It needs a water supply, and it's dumps, the sand is deposited in big piles on the beach. And as far as organisms, they're all submerged in water. Organisms won't survive that. Going through a vacuum into water. I went through all this. I've studied this. The guy who invented that machine was here with me. He drove out to meet me and work with me. And that machine is very invasive, very invasive. It's a huge machine.
Okay.
cylinder.
We got the idea.
Yeah.
Thanks. Marlene, did you have a question?
It wasn't, I think, but I'll ask you.
So are there any other questions at this time for Mark or Ed?
Bruce has a question.
Bruce, sorry.
Council wishes, we can do another year testing.
I'm not ready to make that decision at this time.
Okay.
I think we'll discuss it further, but
So we will contact Neil Main, we'll contact Oregon State Parks. Do we give credibility to Haystack Rock?
I think we need to.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Yeah.
What my question was.
Oh,
How
Marlene.
much of the debris is attached to the wood in the natural habitat?
That all depends on where you're working, because it varies. It can vary greatly. Like right now, there's a lot of grass deep at Whale Park, which if you walk down Whale Park and look at the situation, this year is really bad because it's piled up right at the top of the dune. There's a big small embankment, and the king tides washed it right up like this, right on top. So all the plastics all mixed in with this beach grass, it's sea grass, and it's really a mess. And then it's on the beach too, but it's really a mess down there. And you know what Neil has told me is like there's endless amounts of that sea grass and pine needles and this and that, and it's not important to the environment. It's not important to the ecology. Just take it, Mark. Don't spend time picking it out.
Okay. Got it.
But if you
Thank
go
you.
look at the beach, you can really see what the situation is down there.
So I would like to recommend that the next meeting that we have correspondence or have Neil Main come and talk, something from State Parks and Haystack Rock Awareness Program. And then make
You want to see pictures of the
and pictures of the debris.
Okay.
Is there anything else anybody would like to see?
Well, I want to make sure that, I know Neil is a biologist. I don't know if we can get somebody from State Parks who's also a biologist.
That would,
I would,
State Parks makes the decision whether or not any work can be done on the beach. So I would strongly recommend that party to be a part of it.
yeah, exactly.
okay. Any other questions, comments?
I would thank you for allowing us to become before you, and just hope that can be resolved in a successful manner, especially for the quality of the experience of people who visit Cannon Beach, which has been going on for more than 10 years.
Thank you, Ed.
I think that, maybe we need to remember who the founders were. It was Neil and Karen Main doing the beach alone.
Right.
That's right. They founded Haystack Rock
I
Awareness.
would refer to Neil Main,
Yeah.
and he's been watching us and helping us since day one.
Okay.
And supporting us. I've got to end, but thank you for all your time on this. No, it's been a lot of time.
Thanks,
Thank you
Mark.
very much.
Okay, Paul, take it away.
We have one other hand up.
Oh.
One other hand. Yeah, Sharon Clyde.
Oh,
Can you hear us, Sharon?
Yes, yes. I thought I would make a comment about this
line item for sea turtles. That's been an issue for many years on the budget. In the minutes of May 16th of last year, item number 13, there's quite a big paragraph about what was discussed last year and what was asked of Mark to give to the city to justify the line item. And it was supposed to be a 1-year line item. And if he prepared the papers, the reports that the budget committee council Bruce asked for. And that gives you a detail of what was expected of him. And obviously that was not completed. Now, I'm not saying anything against the sea turtles and that program. It's a fine program, but I'm concerned about the budget process, and that when an organization comes and they're given an exception because he had a hard time always getting his application into the Parks Committee, and there was always some excuse. And so that's how he got into the line item, but that was supposed to be limited. And I just think there's a process for organizations like that. And as a budget committee, we should follow the protocol, the correct process. And because if you don't, and he still gets another line item, then who's going to come and want to do that? Your Parks Committee is going to lose all their authority for what they've got. And I just think that that he didn't follow the rules. And so if you look at that paragraph, number 13 on the May 16th minutes, you'll see what was expected. And then you decide if he followed through and if he deserves a line item this year. And that's what I've got to say. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thanks, Sharon.
Any other hands up?
Ed has his hand up again. Do you want him to speak or?
It's,
And if you speak, you get 30 seconds. So think first.
So do you want me to allow it or no?
What do we think?
Yes.
30
Yes.
You'll need to unmute yourself, Ed. There you go.
Am I done? Okay, I get it. I object to the May 16th statement because it was that discussions went on beyond that. And as I remember, Sam, the mayor at that point, when the final decision was made, was supposed to have a subsequent meeting with the council to define what those items or how they would wanted us to proceed. We never got one word. All we got was a notification of what we had failed. And we would have appreciated having the opportunity to take anybody down the beach and watch us do the work, which is some of the members of this very committee have done. I'm a little bit surprised they wouldn't stand up and say, hey, we know how it works. And the way whoever made the inspection of those bags would have been really nice if they could include a member of our team to say, look at, okay, did we screw up? Yeah, it looks like we got a little extra wood in there, but without any notification until the middle of winter, we get the notification, we won't get our budget back, is not a very good thing for our nonprofit, nor is it a memo for the city management who was supposedly responsible for the product or evaluating how successful we were. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit disgusted.
Thank you, Ed.
Okay, I think that's all. That's it. Okay, great. Next, Next order of business is the budget message, page I.
A PowerPoint presentation that I would be embarrassed to show in front of Jeff Adams, who always had a PowerPoint presentation, even if he was just going to be talking during a staff meeting. So anyway, mine is much more simple than what Jess would be. State law requires the city manager, to present the budget message. I'll do so with a preliminary presentation by paraphrasing some of the major items, followed by more detail presented by the department heads. So to the mayor, city councilors, and citizen members of the budget committee, and the citizens of Cannon Beach. Staff is pleased to present the proposed budget for 23-24. Oregon budget law, RS 294.39, requires a budget message to be prepared by the budget officer and delivered at the first meeting of the budget committee. The purpose of the budget message is to describe financial policies and assumptions for the coming fiscal year, with the budget year, and explain any major changes in financial policy or the level of resources and the requirements or expenditures from the preceding fiscal year. As required by law, the budget is balanced and proposes a spending plan for the coming year, expected resources and operational needs. A combination of the conservative budgeting practices and strong tourism or TLT revenues has put the city in a very positive position going in to 23-24. This was reflected in the recent credit rating upgrade from small A3 from Moody's to Standard & Poor's AA. The passage of the referral of the prepared food tax in November 2021 was a major financial game changer for the residents of the city in terms of public safety. 5% tax on prepared foods paid by the diner and only collected by the restaurant, excuse me, is estimated to generate $1.760 million. That amount will result in $880,000 going both to the city and the Cannon Beach Rural Fire Protection District, referred to as the district, in the first year. The funds will greatly improve the district's ability to increase life-saving services, while the city will be able to fund a much needed resilient City Hall police station. It is also estimated that 96% of the collections will come from visitors to the city. Council budget priorities. Thank you. The presentation of this proposed budget was guided by several principles identified by the budget committee in the previous budget process. Is the priority identified in the strategic plan for funding in this fiscal year? Is the priority one which is appropriate to the city's role as a governing agency? Does the priority lead to a future that will best serve the community in terms of ensuring that Cannon Beach continues to be an attractive, healthy, safe, and livable place for all? Does the priority take into consideration the expressed citizen interests and needs? Last year's budget talked about four initiatives that were recommended to be addressed during FY 22-23. I'm sorry. 21-22. Water supply resiliency, and Karen will be discussing that in detail. Wastewater system reliability, especially lift stations. Again, Karen will be talking about that. Excuse me, the Cannon Beach Elementary School rejuvenation and construction of a resilient city hall / police station. I'll be talking about the last two. So I'll skip the water resiliency discussion and talk about the Cannon Beach Elementary School rejuvenation. City acquired the property on July 1st, 2020, at a cost of $400,000. Funding for the project came from approximately $300,000 that had accumulated in the 70% of the 1% of the county TLT imposed to fund jail operations. The balance came from a $100,000 loan from the reserves of the Tourism and Arts Commission, or TAC. This loan was repaid at $34,000 per year, and the remaining balance was paid in last year's fiscal year. Planning activities are underway for this project. The intent is to develop a tourism-related facility that will convert the gym, classrooms, and newly developed spaces into multi-purpose meeting areas that will attract small to medium professional groups, as well as tourists to the activities on the structures and on the grounds. The Clatsop-Nehalem community is playing a major role in the project planning, especially dealing with the grounds in the central lobby, which will contribute to the attraction for tourists to the site for historical tourism. Strong ecological elements on the site will contribute to the ecotourism attraction of the project. There was an initial budget estimate of approximately $4 million. That was provided to us by an engineering company that had studied the condition of the facility, but did not necessarily have expertise in a community center. They gave us $4 million, and that was, I believe, in 21. Is now, I set it based on my experience at 5.5 million, but at that time it was still an estimate. It was not a budget. The $5.5 million figure relied on a number of poorly defined assumptions about the potentially unseen issues with the structures, the cost to make those repairs, just as importantly, the desires of the community for the project. Because of that uncertainty, it was decided to initially borrow less than the project estimate to start the process of establishing the project budget. And that is when we hired and the construction manager, Bremick. And since that time, we have received the project budget or proposed budget for the project. And that is part of the discussions that we're having now. The initial bonds, the $4.6 million, and this is for the Cannon Beach Elementary, received March 31st, 2022. A reimbursement resolution for the project is in place to allow the portion of these funds to reimburse the general fund for the costs of the initial facility study and the classroom roof work, which was done by the general fund. These bond funds are now in place to cover the cost of the gym roof and other items that have to do with the project as designed. There were 7 community outreach events held by CETA to gather information from the public, and those COEs were well attended. Going on to seismically resilient City Hall Police Station. During the second half of 22-23, the city hired the architectural firm of CETA to design the new City Hall Police Station, and the firm of Emmer Construction to act as the construction manager / general contractor. The plan up to that point was to construct the combined facilities and as the current structure's location and in the Midtown neighborhood. Shortly into the design process, we became aware of a relatively new state requirement to construct critical facilities like police stations to risk category 4 for both seismic and tsunami inundation for emergency facilities. The only site the city owns that is completely outside the tsunami inundation zone is the Southwind property on the east side of 101, which currently houses the Tango cache site. At this point, the cache site is practically a given for the location of the police station because of the elevation. There's still much discussion to be had regarding where the city hall offices should be housed. We'll be having a meeting towards the end of May to have that discussion. The issue, although a lot of people have expressed an interest in keeping the city hall in the current location, being part of downtown, but there's a significant cost difference between the two. If we combine the city hall and the police station at the cache site, there's an estimate of approximately 22 million. Positioning the police station at the Tango cache site and keeping city hall in Midtown carries a price tag of 25 million. While the price tags were not unexpected, there will be challenges with funding the City Hall Police Station and the Cannon Beach Elementary rejuvenation project at the same time. And those conversations are ongoing. Prevent further cost increases. Decisions need to be made regarding the scope of both projects to minimize further price escalation. A recent study indicated that the bond funds for the City Hall Police Station project could be held off until April 2024. Although it's possible to accelerate the process, such a move is dictated by changes in the bond market. In order to move design components, we are required to move the project forward. It will be necessary to provide the project funding from the city's general fund. And the general fund funds will be coming from and being used for the City Hall project. City Council has already adopted a reimbursement resolution, which will allow the city to recover and pay back those dollars advanced to the project to pay them back to the general fund. Funding implications of both the Cannon Beach Elementary and City Hall Police Station project, project delays combined with increases in materials, inflation, supply chain issues, and the cost of financing have significantly increased for both the City Hall Police Station and the Cannon Beach Elementary School rejuvenation project over the past 3 or 4 years. Staff recommends against delaying the projects further as a response to the anticipated increases. Even though the current estimates seem somewhat shocking, it's unlikely the project costs will be this low again. Recommended methods to match funding to the scope for both projects include an increase in TLT collections, property tax increase, making significant scope reductions to the projects, reducing general fund reserve contributions to offset debt service payments, and reducing certain reserves. All are currently under consideration. That's to do with the projects. I'd like to talk a little bit now about recent union negotiations. The first one deals with the employee COLAs. A 3-year contract was signed with both the police and the general employees union in 2021. According to the contract, the 22-23 COLA should have been 2%. However, the relationship between both unions and the city have been positive and mutually supportive. In the first budget during COVID, both unions offered to eliminate the COLA in that budget year. In the spirit of cooperation, it didn't seem fair to move forward with a 2% COLA, where some projections for the cost of living were running 7 to 8% for the same period. Based on that, the 22-23 budget was put together with a 5% COLA. The same holds true for the 23-24. And then also the next one has to do with employee retention. Recently, the lack of qualified workers available due to the cost of housing in Clatsop County, local cities started poaching workers from other cities. Much of that practice was centered on pursuing employees that already had specific certifications and needed for utility operations. To make it less advantageous for our trained employees to leave Cannon Beach, and in fairness to employees that had acquired the needed certifications, management proposed a contract amendment which was accepted by the union. In those instances where an employee has already achieved a certification or achieves one in the future, the city would increase the employee's pay scale by 5% ongoing with a limit of a 15% total increase. In addition, the city is also has equipment that can only be operated by someone with a commercial driver's license or a CDL. The proposal would reward employees who have achieved a CDL with a 5% ongoing salary increase. As far as recommended staffing additions, there are no new employee positions requested in this budget. And I've gone through some of the major points, but the rest of the information in the budget message will be discussed in greater detail by others. If anyone has a specific question about either the information I just went through or what follows in the budget message, we can address those now.
I'd like to see, I'd like to see a copy of the study that indicated that the bonds for the CHPD project could be held off until April 2024. I don't think I've seen that study.
There was not, well, I can provide you with the information. Yes, it was done internally. But what we did is we looked at what the run rate is going to be, and as the project is being delayed, we're not spending a lot of money on construction, so it's a relatively low amount for both the architect and the CMGC. And so we're looking for how how fast will those funds be spent? Have $900,000 in this year's budget we're spending now. We have $900,000 for the general fund in next year's budget. And we anticipate that that will get, both of those would get us through to April. It would not help us at all during construction. So what we're saying is with the, if and when we reach the point that we're going to be taking bond money, it could be held off that long. Potentially.
I'd kind of like to see that, if you have any
Sure.
written
Sure.
information on that.
I can do that. Yes, Dorian.
You mentioned that to move both the city hall and police emergency would be 22 million, 25 if they were separated.
Yes,
Is there a number for just moving the police emergency and not touching city hall for the time being?
I believe that there is. We can get that for you.
Okay, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, 'cause they had to add that in order to be able to talk about what the split is. I just don't recall it right.
Because I would imagine there's been a lot of discussion about this even before I moved to Cannon Beach.
Mhm.
What I have not heard in the time that I've been here is with no lack of respect for the work that City Hall and the staff do, I haven't heard about just renovating City Hall versus trying to move it. And what that would cost as opposed to creating a whole new City Hall. So I'd be curious to see where those numbers fall.
Okay. I don't know if we have a recent number for the renovation. I think that most of us have been involved with the project for a long time. Understand that side of the building is sinking. And when we did a project, a kitchen, that the material they found underneath was a combination of dirt, sawdust, and a suspicious oil. And so that's what was put in for the foundation here. And this, an example is this wall, it's a bearing wall, so it holds up the roof. When we take a break, I'll go around and show you where there's a brace where the roof is holding up the wall.
I think Jeff showed me that.
Yeah, those kind of things. And so it's the condition of the building. The building is actually, well, I don't know, I'll give you more information about it later. There's a lot of issues there.
I've got something that's related, but about the school.
Mhm.
Mentioned potentially unseen issues with the structures, increased costs. I know a lot of times it's more expensive to renovate than it is to just build. What were the potentially unseen issues?
Some of them have been addressed already. There were the issues with the roof in the classrooms. And then subsequent to that, we have done a lot of internal work in the gym because there's to structuralize, I'm saying, to get the gym structurally where it needs to be for seismic. There was work that needed to be done on the inside and then work that needs to be done on the outside. The work has been done on the inside now, and we know the outside. It's a matter of putting on the plywood to go ahead and in the way that they have to, you'll go ahead and put that on. So we have better information now than what we had before.
Thank you. And on the purchase of the school property, we borrowed 100,000 from the Tourism and Arts Commission and then have repaid it. Where did that money come from?
The next payment that we received from the county.
Okay.
With the TLT, the 70%.
So the purchase was totally funded by the TLT from the county? Okay, thank you.
Eventually. I mean,
I'm just talking the purchase.
We're sort of, we're already down the road to saying this is a tourist facility. There's no equivocation. We spent $400,000
by the property.
in tourist money, yeah,
Mhm.
or in TLT money,
Right.
yeah.
Where all does it show up in the budget for the money allotted for the school? Is it in just one place or is it built into several of the budget items?
Right.
It's in the tourism renovation fund.
That's all separate.
We put the bond proceeds in that fund. So we made a new fund.
Okay.
That's on page 112 of your budget.
Bruce, COLA for this year, the 5%, how was that? Was that benchmarked against any
Yes.
towns?
And other towns are taking a similar approach. Because we locked them in for 3 years. The 3 years that it happened. Is very, very high as far as in terms of inflation. And then there was also consideration that both of the unions said, okay, we don't need a COLA this year in a year that we were having a difficult time. And so they were, to a degree, it's to help make that up.
On the funding sources, talk about potentially reducing certain reserves, which you and I, Laurie and I have discussed. I'm wondering when that discussion happens more broadly. I mean, the outcome of that discussion is embedded in your budget recommendation.
Right.
But I think there's fruitful things to discuss there. And I might broaden the question, and I don't know if this is appropriate at this time or even appropriate at all, to say, we should look at other assets that we have. I've been spending a fair amount of time looking at the RV park in the last couple of days. And that's a really interesting asset that's not usual for a city to own. And could be a substantial source of funding for the things we need to do.
And that'll depend on how much the council and the budget committee get involved with the funding of the city hall and the Cannon Beach Elementary project.
Well, ultimately, that's where it all comes from, right?
Right. But up until now, it is the budget committee has not gotten that involved with it, but it was straightforward up until this point. And in fact, when we did the budget and passed the 5% prepared food tax, we thought that the debt service was going to be about $720,000, and our portion of the food tax was going to be about $880,000. Subsequent to that, with all of the cost increases on the project and then the cost of borrowing, it's now gone to 1.5 million. So up until that time, we really did have like in the last budget, we had a way to go ahead and take care of this. So it's up to the committee as far, I'm sorry, the budget committee as to how far you want to get involved with that now. But there is also something that the city council is got a parallel track running, and that they have a series of meetings that are coming up to deal with the costs on it.
Sure.
So,
but I hope those reserves are part of our discussion about project funding, and I'm assuming they will be.
Our discussion, meaning this body, or your discussion?
Our discussion regarding funding for City Hall, in particular.
Our being the city council.
City Council, yes.
Cool.
Sorry.
the RV park will be an interesting discussion.
Yeah, we might look back at some past minutes for.
Yes.
I always think of Paul Vedder one.
Yeah.
No, George Vedder,
Yeah.
It's Paul, George Vedder.
I've been talking to some historians.
Okay.
Yeah.
The term Bhagwan has come up more than once.
Oh, yeah.
Are there any other questions with anything that I've gone over? We can always go back to any of these issues.
Okay. Next agenda item is the general fund. Agenda item is the general fund, Public Works Department. Pages 30 through 36.
I will give up my seat to Karen. No, that's right. No, I never get to do this, Karen.
We're gonna get it anyway.
I always wanted to get us to walk on.
Don't slam the door on the way out.
Choice.
No, I'm gonna read it.
Oh, what page are we on?
33 to 36, Dorian.
Or are you going to be covering the summary? Karen,
I'm sorry.
are we looking at the budget or are you talking about the summary?
That's a good question. I was gonna jump into the budget.
I think
Okay,
Yeah, I think you can do that.
What we talked about,
Bruce mentioned we were talking about resiliency and wastewater reliability.
we can talk about that. I'll start with, water resiliency. The three-phase project that we've been working on for over 5 years. And I'm not following here, so if I miss something that you guys want to address, just let me know.
See if it matches up.
Yeah, what page are you on?
Read it. We all read it.
That'd be my backup.
It's
Um,
page 2 or page II.
Really
Our phase,
down, aren't you?
our phase one is our valves, our seismic valves. The engineering on that is complete. We're working with the engineering firm that won that bid, which is Windsor Engineering, to prepare the documents to put out to bid. We did kind of a turnkey for phase one and phase two because it was so much work trying to get that done as well as process all the loan paperwork. So they'll actually put the project out to bid for us, but they still have to follow the state procurement as well as the city's requirements for the legalese that have to be in the contract. So that is what we're going over right now. We hope to be able to pull the trigger on having that publicly bid here very soon. That is a $586,000, 1% loan. I feel like I've said that 1,000 times, so you guys are probably like, shut up already, we know this. And it has the up to 50% principal forgiveness. Phase two is the line replacement from the springs down to the plant, so on down to the RV park where it's our distribution. That is a $3.2 million loan, same terms, 1%, 30 years, up to $500,000 principal forgiveness. We are finalizing the engineering on that now. They needed to do some potholing that some of you may have seen them do up on the ECFR to absolutely isolate where our water line is. Our records are not finite on that. And as you know, when we're putting the new line in, if we were to break the existing one, we're in a very difficult position. So they're in the process of finishing that now. I don't imagine that will go out to bid for several more months. We'll work through that same contract terms that we do with phase one. Both of those loans have been committed and awarded to the city. So that money is in a holding fund, if you will, where we do drawdowns on that. Phase three is the grand finale. We have been verbally and sent an email to confirm that we have been promised by Business Oregon same terms as our previous two loans, $5.3 million. That covers the engineering of all aspects of phase three and includes the construction of the new tank. What it does not include is $6.7 million that we still need to construct the backbone along Highway 101. So that's the pipe that gets water from the north end to the south end. My admin, Tessa Shutt, has been working tirelessly on a grant that she is chasing. It's already hit the send button, so it's in. It's a wait. I'm gonna be, optimistic. I feel like we have an excellent chance at grant. That's a 25% match that the city would have to do for that. We've talked to Lori about how the city could come up with that 25%. And it also includes an application that we'll put in with Business Oregon, where we've received our other funding, that they would support us on the 25%. They gave us a letter of support that went with our grant application for the 6.7%. We don't know what the terms would be on the 25%, so that's a wild card. But as I say, I'm hopeful. It is a competitive grant, but we hit all the qualifier marks on that. If we get that, I'm personally going to look at that as probably one of the biggest achievements of this entire 3-phase project. So that's where we are with that. We have our tentative engineering plans. I'm still working with the conference center to get our current easement amended. That's an important piece of this phase because the new tank, as you know, is not going to go in the same footprint as the existing one. And so we need to get that easement modified. There's an issue around the trail that they use to access their zip line. We've given them an alternative to how we would reroute that trail so that they could still get to that after the new tank is placed in the footprint. And they counter proposed with another suggestion that is much more costly to the city. So we're working through that. I think that we will we'll come to an understanding. They've always been good business partners of ours in the community, and I don't see that changing in this situation. They're also residents here and they see the importance of that tank. So I think we'll work through that. So that's where we are with the water. With wastewater, as you know, you gave us the funding for 4 new generators. We were hoping they would be staggered where we would get 2 and then 2 the following year. But with the supply chain debacle this past year, it has really plagued us. It takes about 9 months to build a custom generator, which all of ours are. I tease and tell my team we could birth another public works employee by the time we get a generator, but that's just the reality of the situation. And as they build that, there are parts that get delayed associated with this generator being built. We have one that has already reached on site, and it is for the Ecola pump station. And so Maine should be following shortly thereafter. I'll be talking about in the budget the funds that we need to be able to make that change out. We can't just pull a generator out, put a new one in. There's things that have to be done to the pump station to accommodate the new technology. Some of it is venting, some of it is electrical, but that's what those funds are for. The other 2 are for Midway and Siusla, which will put both of those generators with a permanent generator. It'll increase our response time tremendously as far as speed whenever we lose power. Right now, the guys roll mobile generators down there. We're pretty good at predicting the condition of the storms that we know are going to be coming our way and hedging our bets on getting the generators out ahead of time. Sometime we get caught where a storm comes in we don't expect, and it takes time to respond. So those 2 generators are going to help tremendously at those 2 locations. And then we will have just 2 locations where we run mobile generators, and we rarely have to put a generator there. The other one is down on Pacific, where Gene Culp used to live. There's a new owner of that home, but I'll always call it Gene's house. That will be the only mobile generator that we have to run, and that will really help our guys. You're going to see the fuel increase in my budget this year. And that was simply response time last year of all the failures we were having and the amount of fuel that was using, not only our vehicle fuel, but generator fuel. And so that's where we are with the pump stations. There will be improvements that we make to those 4 pump stations. Midway and Siusla obviously is an add-on to those pump stations. That is currently out to bid now. And so I will be bringing you that with a desire to award that to whoever the low bidder is. That's where we are with wastewater. Anything I didn't touch on that you guys are curious about?
I'm on the 3rd phase of the water resiliency, the grant that Tessa just did. Who is that? Who is the agency that you're applying to? Is it Oregon Business or is it another agency?
I get this application right here. It is through the Oregon Water Resource, and it's called Water Project Grants and Loans. And so they send out an invite, inviting people to put in for it. And they give you all the competitive qualifiers that kind of put you in a ranking order, if you will, of qualifying for those grants.
So that would be the funding agency then?
That would it, that.
And have we gotten funding from that agency before? Has it just been Oregon Business?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, so this is the first time for that one. Okay.
But as far as the other three phases that I mentioned, phase 3, even though they've given us a verbal on that 5.3 million, Bruce and I will still have to go through the process of going in front of their board, present the project several times, pitch our cause, because they can always modify that. But right now, based on what they've seen with our letter of intent, which is our complete project, that's what they verbally committed to giving us. But you still have to go through the process. Want me to go right into the budget?
Yeah.
Okay, now what page is that?
33.
All right, so for me, I'm starting on page 33. This is our Ecola Forest Reserve budget for the year. There's no changes to last year, but I do want to highlight 3 things for you on this budget. Line item 6560, the contracted project allowance. This is for our Trout Mountain update. The stewardship plan gets updated, so that's what the funds are for here. Our stewardship plan was due to be updated in 2018. And it took the committee a bit to work through that because they made a lot of really good changes. And it was, I think, be finalized in 22. So Trevor oversees our Parks Committee, and he will mention to them that it's time 2023 would be the time to update it. They have the option to do nothing, or they have the option to make any further minor tweaks based on what they just did. And so he'll put that out to the committee and let them decide, but it is budgeted for the purpose to do that. Line item 62660, you'll see under IGA road development. This is for us to reestablish the roads that we worked through during the stewardship exercise. We had lots of discussions about the roads up there, access for fire protection and or evacuation, if you will, in an emergency. And the committee, working with Barry Sims, decided, and council, of course, decided to say, yes, we would reestablish those roads. So this money that you see in here is an engagement with Greenwood, which is now called Nuveen. And they're agreed to, they gave us a quote to reestablish those roads, repair a culvert that is collapsed, and to maintain those roads going forward for us. They have to work in the same fire window that we do. They know the regulations probably better than our team, and they would do a great job. So we are in the middle of securing that contract with them right now.
So are these are not new roads. These are established
The
roads.
roads that were there before, and they've just been allowed to overgrow because we didn't get in there and do anything with it. The other line item I want to point out is 62428, which is our Southwind Scotch Broom maintenance. So we go in and depending on what the expert is that comes in and kind of gives us guidance on that every year, he tells us the areas that's probably best for us to go after based on how it seems to be popping up in the area. And so that's what that funding is for. Next is page 34, our Parks Department. There's
Just one random question, Karen,
Sure.
on the 62660 term IGA. What does that mean?
626. Yes. Yeah, so there's a contract agreement, intergovernmental agreement if it's with another agency, a municipality. And in this case, it's not, it's a public contract that we do for professional services. Okay, ready for parks. No changes to last year's budget, with the exception of 3 items that you'll see here. Line item 62140, computer expenses. We have been putting cameras up at many of our asset locations. That Rusty's been working with Rick on that and adding key access pads. We did most of those last year, year before, just for enhanced security. So that's what that budget is for. And as I mentioned before, line item 62410, you'll see under fuel. Obviously, gas went up, but this is driven based on the amount of projects, the time the guys are in the field running around. A lot of times you'll see two guys in the same truck together. If they're working on the same project, we encourage them to ride together in a truck and not both of them show up in a separate truck. Light item 62160, 12,000. That is current playground equipment that is aging that needs to be replaced. So Kirk got a estimate on what we're going to be facing to do that. So that's what that funding is for. And that is it for parks.
How about 62600? The beach access improvement maintenance, is that specific projects?
Is that 62600 you said?
Yes, 62600.
Yeah. For next year, we're looking at working with state parks on the Center Street access. Last year, Trevor got several complaints from the homeowners in that area about a big steel rod that was sticking up out of the sand that's kind of bent over, but they're concerned about someone getting injured on it. When Trevor went to investigate, it's actually in the state park's footprint. But it was an old rail, the arm rail that was there that had failed many years ago and they just never addressed it. And so we got a hold of them and said, what's the chance you guys would put this on your plate for a project? And they said, not this year. But if you guys want to do it, go for it. Well, let's partner and do this. So I paid to have it engineered because that's a spot where we've got a waterway that goes under there that's compromising the concrete platform that when you step off of the stairs, you step onto it and on down to the beach. Anyway, long story short, they agreed to put money into the kitty. They put 15 grand in, and that allowed us to order the materials for the contractor that gave us some estimates for that. And then the city is going to pick up making some repairs to the stairs that actually connect to our dams. But we have to go through the permitting process, and that's lengthy with state parks. And so it's a different group that put money in to help with the project. So it's waiting for that to be finalized, but that's what that bucket is for. We're not going to spend anything near what's in that bucket, but that goes towards projects such as this, where we have handrails that are broken, stairs are failing, things like that on beach accesses.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
What about 62454 community forestry?
Say again.
62454 community forestry.
So for community forestry, that's tree assessment, tree removal in the right of ways, and we have to call the arborist out. That money's to pay him to come evaluate on any trees that somebody calls in and says, hey, there's a hazardous tree that's going to fall on the parking lot. You know, that's what that's for.
So the Heritage Tree Program expenses would be in that category. New Heritage Tree.
That's a good question. Yes, because we did not do a separate line item for the heritage tree. It would be under that. It'd be our arborist evaluator.
Yep.
Hopefully 1 tree a year.
To start with.
To start, that's right. Any other questions on park? Okay. Next is page 35. That is our parking fund, and there's no changes there. Recall several years ago, we repaired the cracks and did a slurry in the parking lot, trying to get us some time before we would have to repave that parking lot, because that's going to be an expensive endeavor to do, and it would be far more money than what we had in the kitty. And so far that has held really nicely. So there's some areas on Hemlock that we may do the same thing, because we don't want to have to pave Hemlock before we do our water line replacement. And so you may have me in front of you talking about that under pavement preservation. We're going to look at that. It's done really well in the parking lot, and that's where people turn their wheels the most. That's usually what causes a slurry seal to break down over time. So if it can hold there, it can hold on Hemlock in the areas that are starting to look risky.
And I have a question. I don't know if this falls under parking or not, but is the city responsible for the guardrails along the exits, for instance?
The one on the north end that was damaged for quite some time, that's actually ODOT's footprint. We have guardrails in town that we are responsible for, but most of the exits into town are ODOT until you get to a certain, you're almost down to the bottom of the exit before it becomes city property.
And completely unrelated, but also out of the question, I noticed for a while that our lovely Welcome to Cannon Beach sign is gone. Is there somewhere in the budget where we were replacing that?
I actually have to recuse myself from the discussion about signs because I am a homeowner in a sign business, so I will defer. I won't defer that to Bruce. Hold that question. All right, thank you. Any other questions about parking? All right. I'm on page 36, and this is our public restrooms. Two items on this I'd like to point out is item 62568, our public janitorial services. Increase that a little bit. The city has been very fortunate with our porter service in that they have not increased their fees with us year over year. Where we have seen the increase in this line item is where the city calls and says, we need you to pick up trash more often at these locations because the cans are filling up too fast. They have that's increase in staffing for them. And so if they either have to bring another person on to be able to pick up those extra pickups, or seasonally, especially in the summer, they'll bring on a seasonal person. That's what this is for. So, and then line item 63013 is the Midtown bathroom that's currently out to bid. So we're hoping that we will get the response back here pretty quick. Other questions about restroom? Okay. I'll take you over to page 44, which is our ECOLA reserve fund. There's no changes. Next is page 47, our parks SDCs. That is all it is, just system development charges. That's what the account is for. Carolyn. Then I'll take you back to page 73 is recycling. Just like to commend Andrew that handles our recycle that's on my team. He does a phenomenal job with recycling. He's the biggest tightwad on my team, I think, which I love him for that because as you know, there's not a lot of way for us to control cost at recycling. And he's done a really good job. So just want to give him a kudos two things on that item, on that list that's changed is our 62140, the computer expense, that's a camera that Rusty and Rick will be putting out at recycle. And then 62720, our union contract required the increased 250. That was part of our negotiations. And so we only had 150 in that bucket and we had to increase that. Yes.
The real expenses of cameras are kind of monitoring the data. Do we only react in this case? Is this an incident happens and we go back and review the tape, or is someone?
You mean is someone actively monitoring them during the day? We are not. They're more for the purpose of if we had a break-in, our insurance is very happy that we have security measures in place and we can prove different things that may go on. So it's more for break-in. If there was an incident of violence, the police could use those. If we have someone that gets in a scuffle at our recycle location, the camera would be helpful in that regard, but no one sits and monitors them during the day. Wish we had that kind of staff, Tim.
But they're all 24/7.
Yes.
The police can view them at any time if they want to.
Yeah. Now, so if we get a call when the recycle is closed, say a resident calls and says, hey, I just passed the recycle and I saw something going on, the PD could go into that camera and take a look. But we're not sitting monitoring them during the day. Okay, next page 75, that's our recycling reserve. There's no changes in the plans in there. It all several years ago, you guys gave us the approval to replace the siding and the roof of cycle, and that was phenomenal. Made huge improvements to the appearance, and we had a major rat infestation in the building, so it was super nice to be able to get that done. So thank you for giving us that funding. Next, I'll take you to page 78. This is where the fund begins. This is our water budget. There's only two changes to this budget this year. One is under 62320. That's our natural gas. We've seen market increases in the gas that the guys use at the water plant that gets delivered to us in the big tank. So that's what that adjustment is for. And then line item 62830 in training and education. We have an employee that's been on our water team for a number of years, and he has no certifications. His two peers are senior employees that are age and years eligible to retire today. So if they were to retire, we would have no certified water employees. So we're going to address that this year. And that's it for water budget.
What line item was that, Karen? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
What line item?
Oh, I'm sorry. 62830 training and education.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, next up is page 81. That's our water reserve. That's where you see all the action going on. I spoke to the 3 water resiliency projects. So the dollars you see there, loan dollars that either have been awarded to us or phase 3 has been promised to us. So that's what Lori puts in that bucket there. The water line replacement 63013 on East Harrison. Council approved that last year. We're finalizing the engineering and that will be going out to bid here very soon. 63014, the Haystack Heights water loop project. That includes the property discussion and the line being brought from the east side of the highway to, or from the west side of the highway to the east side to start that loop project. Then it stops, and next year we look at the East Chinook and the hydrant and everything that I brought to you guys before.
Has anything,
That in phases.
has anything happened with that property? Any movement?
probably not here, but it's in progress.
Okay.
Any other questions on water? Okay. See here, page 84 again is the water system development charges. No changes there.
Is this the place that I ask whether or not a water rate increase is planned for this year?
I think until consultant is done with Lori and goes through all of the projects that we gave them and they finalize, and I don't want to speak for Lori, so please speak up here. I don't think they're done
Yeah.
exercise yet.
We're not factoring it into this proposed budget. We are conducting a utility rate study right now with FCS Group. They will come back with rate increases. It won't be in time to get it into this budget yet. So we probably will have a suggested rate increase for July 1 that we can implement when we know the numbers. When you look at wastewater and storm drain, you're going to see some numbers in there. They may be lower or higher than what the rate study comes back at, but we need that revenue to sustain the proposed budgets for wastewater and storm drain. So you will see a revenue requirement and you'll see what the monthly residential base rate is for that requirement. When we're looking at wastewater right now, we're recommending a revenue increase of $253,270. Our current rate right now for residential minimum is $28.74 a month. And with the increase, it would be $33.09 per month.
$2.39 increase.
Yeah. Something like that. It's $4.65 per month increase.
$4.65.
Yeah.
Just for wastewater?
Just wastewater.
And that's going to probably be in addition to a potential water rate increase.
We're not sure what the rate study is going to say at this moment, so it could be different, I guess is all I can say.
Sorry, I saw that in here, but do you know what page it is?
It's in the, if you go to the budget message on page 10. That's you can see at the bottom there, we have an explanation of that. The wastewater rates go from a base rate of $28.74 to $33.39 per 100 cubic foot. Price goes from $7.19 to $8.05. And that's just on the base rate alone, that's a $4.65 increase. And then you see the percentage there, 16.2%, but you know, when you're makes it sound like a lot more, but that's the percentage increase. And that's just wastewater. And then if you want to talk about storm drain, we have current fixed fee $9.22 per month. And we're recommending going to $11.99 per month. That's a dollar increase of $2.77. And that's a 30% increase. So, but it's only $12. So that, right.
That residential only or all structures?
That's the base residential. That's like a 3/4 inch meter, which is the majority of the meters that we have in the city. So the cost will be more for like commercial installation where you have a larger meter size.
Thank you.
30%.
Okay, so page 87, wastewater. As I mentioned before, there's quite a few changes here on wastewater. Start with line item 62140. That's under the computer expenses. That is the cameras for our wastewater plant. And then 62380, that's our generator fuel, and right below that, 62410, that's our vehicle fuel. That's all associated with response time for failures at the pump stations, how long the generators ran, associated with all the storms that we had, and so on. Next up is 62422 and 62425. Anywhere where we've had material and tools, we've seen a market fluctuation in materials. So we've made the adjustment there for what we anticipate will continue next year. Hopefully we underrun that, but I wanted to make sure that we had ourselves covered in that regard. Same with chemicals, 62430. We trialed a new tank that is associated with odor control. And Mike and the team trialed that, and we put the cover over Matanuska pump station. We have the space inside there to put that. That tank has to be inside. And then there's chemicals, of course, that go in the tank. And the team felt that that was very effective. At times you'll go down Hemlock and there'll be an area where you get a whiff of something and I'll come in and say, why is it smelling over there? You know? And they say, this is why we're trialing this tank. This is that controls that. So that cost is associated with that. We're going to eventually move that tank over to the Siusla pump station. We do add on there. It'll be further up in the stream of the flow of waste that we think is going to be more effective. The further it up is in the flow, the better it is. So we'll have the space at Siusla now to put that tank inside there once we do the add-on. So that's what that funding is for. And let's see here. The 62566, where it says Lagoon Bank Rehab, that's across the highway where outlets are. It's time for us to redo that so that we don't lose that bank stabilization in that area. So that's what that funding is for. And then lastly, 62830, training and education. As you know, we lost Levi Anderson to the fire department last year, and we hired Jet Johnston, who came with some prior municipality public works experience, but he will need to get his wastewater certs. He has water experience, but he needs to get his wastewater certs. So we bumped up the training to be able to allow for that. And then Marty Parsons, who is on my team currently, is going for his level 2 test as we speak. So those tests all cost money, but they're required for under our permit conditions with DEQ. So that's what that was adjusted for. Any questions on wastewater?
Got the pontoon. Got the pontoon. Got the pontoon.
He had a little ceremony out there with some fake champagne, and we launched that boat, you know, to give it the good mojo. They even have a name for it. So when we get it officially labeled, we'll send some pictures. The guys were pretty creative when they came up with the name.
Oh, I can imagine.
Page 90 is our wastewater reserve. This is where all of our projects are happening. 63009, the Matanuska electronics / generator. Now that we have the cover over Matanuska, the previous little, I call it a hut, is still inside that building. So what will happen, that's where all the guts of the electronics, all of our alarms, everything that runs that pump station is in that. So we have to go through the painstaking process of taking it out of that and getting it onto the walls of the new building and keep the pump station running while we're doing that. So it's probably going to give the guys some more gray hair than they have now. I know it will me, but that's what that funding is for, is it's all to that electronics. We have the control panel is an old Allen Bradley. We will update that and get ready to make those changes. And that pump station, once we get that done, is probably going to be the best pump station out of the 9 that we've got in the city. So 63020, that's our Midway, Siuslaw, building add-ons. And that's what's out to bid right now. 63026 is our station that I mentioned. That's just to get out the old military generator. We went in. Venting that has to happen. Mike and the team just installed 2 more louvers that are required for the type of venting based on that generator. 63031 is the main pump station generator change out, and that's right there at the corner of Spruce and Second. And that's it, our reserve. A lot of projects going on at once. Page 93, that's the system development charges for wastewater. Uh, 96. That's our storm drain fund. There are no changes to that budget at this point.
Question.
Sure.
So, does that mean that all the, I can't remember what we're calling them, but the extensive rerouting of the storm drains, all the engineering costs that have been,
Talking about the presidentials.
we have the presidentials and I
Oh.
believe we're finished on the north end of Chapman Point, correct?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah, so that's on the next page, page 98, and I can talk about that a little bit, but in this actual, what I call our operating daily type stuff, no changes out to that budget. Okay. If you jump to page 98, that's where we get into the category that you're speaking of, Brandon. And this is similar to what we did up on 7th and Oak. Okay. We have a drafted proposal that OPRD has given us a tentative nod that they agreed to that. The hitch in the get along is the same as Haystack Heights, where we have a private property issue we've got to work through. And once we've worked through that, we'll be able to proceed.
coming back to me now, thank you.
And I don't have a final on that either right now, but I'll probably be bringing that to you guys later in a different forum. And
Just
this
to
will
be
be,
clear, I'm sorry, that's the west end of the presidential outfalls. Okay.
and so plan will be to handle this in phases. I think I mentioned to you before, instead of just doing all 5 drains at once, we want to be a little more conservative and kind of prove out our engineering plan here to make sure that that is effective and that we don't get any backup into the residential streets. And so we will attack that. Jefferson and Jackson is where we're going to start. And we'll go through one winter season of high rains and see how that reacts. If that proves out to be an effective engineering plan, then we will go ahead and proceed to the next 3 drains.
Okay,
Okay. So
Are there
that's what
property
that-
owners there that private property owners there that involved in that project?
There's a parcel between us and state.
Okay, so we're still looking at
Our executive session that we had.
that.
Okay. Next up is. That's it. A storm SDC result. Anything that I didn't touch on, you guys have questions about?
Number 19.
roads.
Roads. Number 19.
How did I miss roads here?
We've got a few more funds to go through.
Sorry about that. 104 roads, same thing, computer expenses, 62140. That's cameras out at the public works yard. 62380, and the one right that 62410, both generator fuel and vehicle fuel. Same situation, wastewater. And then 6560, that's our contractual services. And we increase this just because of the cost of oil. This is where our asphalt comes in. So oil went up, that caused our quotes on asphalt from all of our contractors to go up. So our intent is to just hold the budget to where it is, not add streets to it, but just maintain the amount of money that we're needed each year just to keep our current asphalt in good shape. So it's just preservation of our current streets. 63007. Page 105. This is our Calavana vehicle ramp that I've been working with state parks. I think we talked about this before. Got that money in there in the event that intent is for us to come up with our desired design and get that engineered. And then hand it off to state parks because they're the actual owner of the adjacent property where our ADA ramp is currently, that we kind of want to blow away, if you will, and redesign our vehicle ramp to incorporate the ADA into that so that it's not so expensive every year to keep that switchback cleaned off. And it's just a hazard. I mean, I understand why the city had to put it in, but we didn't have a lot of time to really think that through, and it has become a very expensive thing for the city to maintain. So our goal is to get that out of there, redesign the vehicle ramp that needs to be rebuilt, and incorporate the adaptive surfing into that entrance to the beach. So we're kind of killing three birds with one stone. State Parks qualifies for a lot more funding and grant opportunities than we would because they'd be the actual property owner, because the vehicle ramp would also cross over into their property, just as our ADA ramp does today, in order to incorporate those things into it. So our goal is to put together a cross-functional team between the city and state parks to come up with that design on what that should look like. Bring it to council, get your approval on that, and then have state parks chase funding. And then we'll see how that all shakes out. And if there's a city north of us that applied for a grant and the entire project was funded through that. They didn't have to match anything. It was a complete grant to them. So that is what state parks wants to try to pursue. And it's green something anyway. So Ben Cox has been awesome. The hitching to get along that delayed us, as you guys know, is that there was a lady that took a fall and she filed a lawsuit against the state parks in the city. So we wanted to wait before we did anything until that was addressed, and then we put our team together and proceed. And so that's where we are with this. And that's it. Roads.
A lot. Really amazing job.
We need to give you more projects.
Did I forget anything? The bridge. Let's go to 108. Talk about the bridge. This is Jan's favorite subject. As you know, Civil West handled all the paperwork to pursue a grant for us to have our bridge evaluated once again for today's seismic standards. And if we get that grant, we'll be able to finally have that bridge evaluated for someone to say it either can correctly be retrofitted, or we need to look at building a new bridge. The gentleman that came out from Civil West said he felt we had excellent chance of being able to retrofit our current bridge. He said he works with bridges and inspections all the time. He said for the age of this bridge, he said for all intents and purposes, he said it's in great shape. If you guys remember back or my time, they retrofitted those the underlings of the bridge. And he said that, you know, those have held, there's no, even when ODOT does the inspection every year, other than just normal maintenance of the surface of the street that goes over the bridge, that's going to have to be resurfaced. The bridge is in good shape. So we're hoping that when the grant comes back, and I'm hoping that we get the grant, that we can move forward on having that inspection done and actually get some information. So right now we're in a holding pattern. We won't have that until we have the grant to be able to do that inspection. And Civil West has all the information of when this bridge was evaluated before, and there was $1 million something price tag that was attached to it back then, so that we're not reinventing the wheel and spending money on something that's already been done. But the difference is that the seismic standards have changed since that was done and to what they are today. So we want to make sure that that's recognized. So that's where we are in the bridge. All right. And I think we're done. Or you want me to do the Public Works admin, or you want to do that? Okay. So page 124, Works admin. That's for me, Trevor, and my administrative assistant. Yes. There's no changes to that. For low maintenance. Although I will say, I had to counsel Trevor about how much fuel he was using.
Didn't use enough.
He gets out of the office far more than I do, and thank good for that. So, but that's our budget. It's pretty simple. I do want to say to council and the budget committee, previously, I like to start off every year with my picture boards and some things that we pulled out of the ground outside and bring into you. And thank you for the money that you give us. I was not on my game this year for several reasons. I didn't get to do that, but I just want to say our team deeply appreciates the funding that you give us. The guys feel really good about being able to make repairs and improvements to the infrastructure that they've wanted to do for a lot of years. And so they're grateful for this money. They don't ever get the chance to really tell you guys that unless they cross paths with you out there in the community, but they do appreciate it. I personally appreciate it. I feel like we're doing good things for the health of our infrastructure. And so I just want you to know, I personally appreciate it. My team appreciates it. And they work their buns off trying to get all this stuff done. And I know several of them have goals they've personally set that they're not leaving until on retirement, until they have seen some of these projects through. So it makes me happy to be able to see them get excited about some of that. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And we thank you.
Yeah.
Welcome to town.
Hey. Next item is the general fund resources.
Okay, we'll go to page 26. Bunch of lines there, of revenues. We have 6 lines just for room tax, so looks a lot. I'm going to summarize it for you on 14 of the budget. Sorry to take you backwards, but you can see I put in the top 10 revenues kind of frequently. That's where all our eggs are. And you can see from the top 10 here, it comprises 98.95% of our estimated resources for next year's budget. So you can see room tax, obviously, it's at 71%. I'm estimating $4.5 million. And if you look at page 15, this is where I show you the budgeted amounts that we've had through 2020 up to 2024. And what you'll see here is general fund portion in that first green bar It's exactly the same estimate as we have in the current year. So I'm recommending that we don't go above that. I think we're going to have some softening in the tourism sector. So I feel comfortable just keeping our budget number the same as the current year. I think we'll hit that this year. So far, each quarter, we've come in at the estimated number. So that's what I'm doing with that. And then we have property tax. That's 12%. I'm estimating 709,000 for that. That's, we typically forecast a 3% increase every year. That's because that's Oregon state statutes. Counties can increase the assessed value by 3%. And that typically happens. Good estimate there. Interest income, this is interesting. We're in a place right now where interest rates are going up. So we're earning a lot of money at our local government investment pool where we keep the majority of our funds. We don't need for current operations. We obviously pull out what we need to pay the bills every week, and keep payroll online. So we're earning quite a bit of interest right now. And of course, we didn't budget for it last year at this time because we didn't know what that was going to do. So this is a very, very conservative estimate, even though it looks like a lot of money. So I'm feeling good about this. Interest rates may come down in the following year, but I think we'll probably earn enough going into July 1, July, August, September. I think it's going to continue with that trend, maybe a few more months. And since this is a downgraded estimate from what the current interest rates are, I think we're fine. The next item, number 4, franchise fees. These are contracts that we have with utilities right of way. So Pacific Power, they've got their poles in our right of way. They pay us a certain percentage of their gross receipts every month to have that ability to be in our right of way. It's the same with Spectrum and what else? Northwest Natural Gas.
Cable.
And the telephone.
Cable companies.
Yeah, Spectrum, yeah. So that I estimate, just kind of on historical trends. Sometimes when the weather is bad, obviously electric and Northwest Natural Gas, they're going to be selling more energy. So it's hard to estimate that. And so I just I have a feel for it over the years. And I look at the trends and just, that's how I estimate that. Number 5 are planning revenues. This is short-term rental fees that we're charging. Those went up recently from $75 to $500. So every short-term rental property pays $500 every year to the city. And so that's in this category. And then planning fees and then local planning fees. Those are zoning and, that type of thing, variances.
What about system development charges? Are those in there or not?
No, they are by law, they require being in their own fund.
Okay.
So that the money that comes in there is isolated for a particular purpose.
Okay.
So that planning revenues are 141,000. I'm estimating that. Again, I look at historical trends and they're largely driven by construction or making improvements to your property. So that again, I just kind of look at past and think about what the economy is doing at present. State revenues, also known as assessments. That was what we talked about during our public hearing. Those are revenues that we get per capita from the state. Liquor, cigarettes. Cigarettes used to be a lot more. I've been doing this 22 years and I'm like, that used to be a very big number, cigarette tax, but now it's just like, I guess no one's smoking anymore. However, our marijuana, smoking marijuana maybe, but I don't know. The marijuana has decreased. And I called my friend at the state and said, what's happening with our marijuana tax? It's lower, you know, and he says, well, it's because price of marijuana, the retail price has gone down. So of course, the tax is going to go down. And then the collections, so they don't pay cities unless they get paid. So their collections are down as well. So I did factor that into the budget estimates for next year. So that is estimated at 112,000. Court fines have been going up, 90,000. A lot more ticketing and parking tickets. So that's like that, 90,000. Business licenses are pretty standard. They don't go up a lot, but they don't go down either. So that's $8,000 in business license fees. And our land leases, those are fixed contracts. So I know pretty, you know, that's a pretty solid number, $48,080. And then our parking lot maintenance, that's for, that's 38,000. And that's not considering any kind of a price increase this year. We could contemplate that. I'm not sure. Maybe Karen would like.
I don't understand that one.
You know what? It's a very interesting thing. It's not a typical thing I've seen, but it's business owners have to have so many parking spots. And so we've allowed them to say they're using our public parking area, our parking areas for the public. That would satisfy their requirement, but they pay a fee for it.
Oh, okay. I get it.
And that program is still available or not available?
I'm not sure. That's a planning department.
It's not available if anybody new.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, so all of those revenues add up to $6,302,854. And it does not include transfers in and grants, and it does not include our beginning fund balance, which are the grants I don't include or transfers in because those aren't always reliable or stable. And so we don't want to consider them in our top 10. But and then the beginning fund balance, it's a resource, it's not a revenue. So I don't factor that in either.
That was my question was on the RV park, but that's a transfer in of 300,000.
Yes.
If it were in your top 10 list, it would be number 3.
Correct. So that is that. That's our next item here.
We could take like a 5-minute break. When they started talking about restrooms, I thought, oh no. Paul, what do you think?
Sure.
Give 'em a break?
Thanks. Gee.
What a guy.
My bad.
I'll do page 40.
Page 40, general fund.
Okay, we're on page 40. The general fund has a department called non-departmental. The Health and services amount of 877,000 is. Karen touched on it a little bit. She has a public works administrative services fund. And that's where we accumulate the costs of head essentially. FTEs, public works director, and her administrative assistant. So what we do is then we have some materials and services costs in there. So we have labor, some operating expenses that we disperse among the general fund is one of them. And you'll see we're dispersing 77,000 of per fund into the general fund. And that's for operating the parks department and the overhead. And so we do the same thing with IT at the executive department, which is Bruce and Jen. the finance department, which is my department and staff, and the costs that go along with operating that. And then central services, that's sort of an indirect cost of things that don't really go with anything. There's no labor there or staffing. It's just costs for like the copier, things that aren't just finance department or just executive. So it's kind of contributes to the whole city's operation. So that's what that is. And then this department also shows you all the transfers out of the general fund into the various funds here shown. Debt service, every year we have that. And that's paying for the lagoons at the wastewater treatment plant. And that's 50% of the cost of the debt service there. And then we levy a property tax for the rest of the debt related to the lagoons. Roads fund, typically you'll see the past history would always fall short of our operating needs. So we get a general fund transfer. The road fund does have a property tax. We have a road district that levies a property tax. So if you go back to the roads department that Karen discussed, you'll see property tax coming in, and then our fuel tax, which we talked about earlier, which is this shared revenue. So we do have two funding sources for the road fund, but it typically falls short and we subsidize it through the general fund. So that's that. This is the, we show a transfer to the general reserve fund, 700,000. This is like our rainy day fund. If something bad happens, we have that money to rely on. During the pandemic, we actually had spending authority to use some of that funding if we thought we needed it, because nobody knew before while we were in the pandemic, what that pandemic was going to look like. And we were obviously taking measures to mitigate any kind of financial impacts we thought we might have. So it was nice to have that there and available if we needed it. But we didn't need it. So that's a good news, but we didn't actually fund it either. So we have to transfer out 1 year. You can see that under the 2021 column, we didn't make a transfer that year. Transfer to the Bridge Reserve Fund, that's the match money for the FEMA grant for the bridge repairs. And wastewater, 164,000, that's going into the reserve fund to fund some of those capital projects that Karen had listed. And then the contingency of 10%. It's, you know, we have budget adjustments during the year sometimes. Lately, the legal costs and community development have been high and we're not budgeting enough. So we've asked for an adjustment to cover those things, and that's how we do that through that vehicle contingency. So those add up to $3.5 million. Any questions?
What's our record on using the contingency?
I don't keep statistics on that, so I don't know, but I know lately we've had, I don't know, I think this year we had quite a few adjustments. So each year, I don't know, but I would say we had probably 6 adjustments budget. In various funds, not just general fund. So we have contingencies in all the operating funds. And so we've had to do some adjustments like in the water fund, wastewater fund.
I don't know if I missed it, but transfer to general reserve.
Yeah, that's our rainy day fund.
Okay.
Which will now be over 3.1 million.
At the end of next year, yeah.
So we have a $700,000 rainy day fund plus 734,000 contingency. So none of that 1.5 2.4 million is earmarked for anything at the moment.
But there's actually.
No, it
a
isn't.
general reserve.
There's already 2.4 million in the general reserve.
Yeah.
No, there's nothing.
Just for the year.
I'm talking about 700,000.
But you want to have a contingency on hand in case you need it.
Right.
You don't know what's going to
Go
happen.
back and look at how much we did.
700,000 and 734,000 that you're proposing. We have no earmarks for.
Not currently. Well, we can talk about the general reserve now. On page 42.
Go on.
Right here. So, in our current fiscal year, our balance, cash, it's 2 million, 2.4 million. So, the proposal is to add 700,000, and like Tim said, it'll go to 3.1 million next year.
Unrestricted.
No, it's, well, no, it's at the council's, we would never spend this without council approval.
But what I mean is it's not a portion to a particular fund. It's
It's own fund, it's its own pot of money, and it's to be used at the discretion of city council.
If I can just kind of address a little bit about where those kind of things come in. First of all, I don't agree with the term rainy day fund.
No, you don't?
No,
Pretty good.
it's an emergency, it's for emergencies. In like a hurricane, you can spend $3 million in 3 days. And you're on your own in the very beginning. And if you want to hire somebody, you have to be able to pay for it. Ultimately, if you are very successful, you'll recover 80% of your funds from your insurance company and from FEMA. So you have to have money up front to be able to go ahead and operate. And so that to me, we had a city roughly the same size and we had $5 million because of the experience of the people around us that it had with hurricanes. Now here, we have a seismic event. It'll be, by the time we go ahead and bring people in to help us fix roads, utilities, all those other kind of things, that's where we're gonna pay them.
Thanks. General fund, public safety. 738.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for your time. I did my best to make it rain today, so I'm not missing anything. Good job.
Nice.
All right, so. Police. Going from the top, the increases with the salaries, wages on down isn't anything new that we've added. It's just the
I'm in the wrong place.
percentages of things that have gone up.
37. Yeah.
And other than that, those costs are staying the same. As I said, we're not adding any pollution this year. Moving down to the materials and supplies increases. The first one is the computer expenses. We're switching, our iPads are outdated. Ones that the officers carry in their cars, and they're compatible with our records management system for the county. So we are switching to Tough Books, and then the mounts for the vehicles as well. So this is something that they can use in the office and they can take and use on the road with them, so they can be up on the road.
And it's called Tough Books.
Well, it's called a Tough Book because it's.
Basically, enforced hard case around it for copying, that type of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we're also looking into getting a new countywide record management system with all the other agencies that will be compatible for that as well. So that's what that increase is for. And then next increase is vehicle fuel. That's just what we've been seeing the pattern the last several years. We're already over budget this year for fuel. And then vehicle repair and maintenance is the same. Some vehicles, we just rotated one out this year, and we have another that's getting up there. So that will be we'll be seeing some repair and maintenance for the wear and tear on as well. The next one's operating equipment and tools. There's a evidence tracking system on here, the addition of 9,000. And that's part of the accreditation system I talked to you guys about that we're going to be doing this year, the accreditation process. And part of that is tracking your evidence. So this will make it a lot more streamlined where our evidence technician, Valerie, can scan it. It'll go immediately into the system. It's a lot easier than us doing our own initials. And we can track it all the time where it's at, even if it's released to another agency or the district attorney's office. And that's one of the requirements with accreditation to make a standardized and professional system. The other one, this might excite some of you, is the contractual services. The cost won't excite you. An increase of 28,500, and we're actually that's half of it. We're splitting it system as well and finance, but it's for parking. We're looking into parking enforcement and permit management system. We haven't settled on what we want to use because we're starting those conversations about parking. And this is one system. There's so many different systems in place, but we're going to put some so we can look into a better system for parking and or the management of our parking citations. Right now, finance enters them and the parking aides help them enter them all into the system and do the billing. The current system that we're looking at would do that billing for them as well, plus enter all that stuff. So just ideas that we're looking at. We wanted to put some money in the budget to get that started. Next increase was just dispatch. That's typical. Every year it goes up. We actually have a really good deal with the dispatch. We should, and I know Mark can attest to this, we should be paying a lot more. And I know that day will come where we do have to pay more, consolidated or whatever they decide to do, but just better communication. It does increase slightly every year, but I'm sure we will see something in the future, a larger increase.
Makes sense. Yeah, just a quick question on that, if you don't mind. So about the dispatch, since we do part of the time, I'll call it in-house, is that correct? Is that reflected in that budget or is that reflected in the?
That's in our salaries.
Okay.
Yeah, that's in the PD salaries and
so does that not have anything to do with what you're talking about, the increase? Okay.
no, that's we I guess essentially pay for one dispatcher in Seaside that covers our after hours or our 911s as well. Our 911 calls that go up to that center. We don't take 911 calls here. We take all the non-emergency calls and people coming into the lobby, but that's a 911 dispatch center. So that's what we're paying for with that.
Understand. Okay.
Increase on dues and subscriptions. That's just the accreditation, the annual cost of $2,200. And that includes what's called Power DMS, which is the system that helps us extract our policies and implement them into the accreditation system. And this first year was free. It's kind of like drugs. They sell you on it being free and then they hit you up. It's a really good system. And in fact,
Public safety guide to the court.
they do give you a really good deal at the start to get you started. And actually, Chris is in there working on the accreditation stuff right now. And then the last increase is Chevy Taco, and that's the whole system. And it's 72,000, but it's only a 37,000 increase from last year. If you'll remember last year, we went with an officer, adding that new officer position, so we didn't do a vehicle. And we need a new car. In fact, this year we had to do an emergency new car just because we were getting so dwindling from the wear and tear on the vehicle. So we did get a Dodge Durango, and we had to do it off a lot in Bend, which is a typical, usually you'll go through. We go through a different service, but they're backlogged over a year and a half on the vehicles. At least police package vehicles. So any questions on the police budget? Yes.
I have one. Did you cover the dues and subscriptions?
Yeah, that was the dues and subscriptions. The increase is just for the.
You said something about 22,000, or it says up from 800 to 3,000.
Yes, it's $2,200 a year for us to do the accreditation subscription.
Oh, it goes along with the accreditation. Okay.
No helicopter in there.
Someplace. It's some, I know it's some.
Lifeguard budget.
Okay.
No helicopter.
I didn't realize that one of the new people that he hired from the Coast Guard, I thought they were both mechanics. They are both mechanics.
No,
One of them is also a pilot.
Oh.
It's all coming together. So we'll move on to life saving. And I've got Mark here. You may have some questions as we go, but the life saving has, you'll remember to last year, we had worked with the lifeguards. In fact, they started ahead of when we normally started, and they supplemented our normal lifeguards on the beach. And that was their paid staff that was helping down there. I don't think they had any call-ins or anything. You did?
Yeah, Matt, Kevin.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And so this year we decided to switch all of the personnel costs to the fire department and have them completely take over the hiring, training. In fact, they've already started. And so part of that will be the same ones that helped last year, but also bringing back our lifeguards that worked with us last year and new ones that they're getting about. So that goes down. Instead of being up in the salaries and wages, it goes into the contractual services. And a big chunk of that includes PERS. So obviously PERS is one of the biggest expenses when it comes to personnel services. And for the fire department personnel, same with us with like our parking information aides. If they are a PERS member somewhere else, we have to pay into their PERS account. And that includes with the fire service, especially their full-time employees that are PERS employees. We'll get that through our wages as well. And let's see here. The only other increases are the equipment and tools. We do need to replace, I think, a board, at least a board this year. Also, uniforms and wetsuits need to be replaced. And so we'll keep taking on those expenses for the materials and services through the city. In fact, I just was talking this morning with Mike Clark regarding the tower replacements that we're needing to do on the tower to keep it for this summer and have that ready to go. But that's really it. The biggest thing, biggest change that you'll see is the fire department will be taking over the personnel services for the lifeguards, and they'll be billing us for those expenses. So a few months ago, you guys saw the IGA come through, the agreement between the city and the fire department.
I have a question, Jason. For the part-time salaries and wages and overtime, which are the lifeguards, as I understand it, 84,500. But then you said that it goes into the contractual services. Is that right?
Yes.
And that's 165,000. So why is it so much more than what it was originally last year? The adopted budget last year.
Do you want to get that, Lori, or Mark?
Well, it includes benefits as well. And Mark, can you comment?
I'll comment a couple things.
Thank you.
So, and you're gonna have to help me a little bit, Lori, because we had the conversation, so with Duncan, way I understand it. Part of what we did is also the management of it. But where you guys had the management line, talking to Duncan was in a different line, so it didn't totally align. So that was one difference. But the other is a lot of our employees, a lot of the lifeguards we're gonna pay PERS on. Because of where they're coming from versus many of the lifeguards that they had that aren't coming back. And one of the reason we took it is we weren't paying PERS on. And so there's a big difference there in PERS.
Yeah.
And then how we have to account PERS because of the employees that we're getting part-time that work full-time elsewhere.
Of the lifeguards we hired last summer, only 2 were in PERS.
And
That's the difference
of the
there.
12 that we have right now, I think we counted 9 that we know we're gonna have to pay PERS on. Right, so there's a big difference there. We pay, and I think we have a different rate than you guys do, because each agency has a different rate. Our rate is like 31, over 31%. I'm not sure what your guys, each agency has a different rate.
Oh, okay, that increases it considerably, doesn't it?
Yes.
So what is the cost advantage of the city handing over the lifeguards to the fire district?
I don't know that there's a cost advantage of it, but if you look at the amount of, they have the jet skis, they have the water rescue, they're going down and helping when we have any type of a lifeguard situation. They're down on the beach as well, so it makes sense. In fact, the fire department's essentially in charge of water rescue, not the police department nor the city in this situation because they're a district. And so it's not that we're trying to make money off of doing this. It's going to cost us some money to transfer it. We've discussed that several times. It's going to be, and I think the big thing that we talked about is that we always put our salaries at the highest rate. I think when we here, we would put in a budget for each of the lifeguards being at the highest rate. And I think that's something that Mark's done as well. And so we don't know what budget's going to be this, I guess, highest ceiling of it.
And what is for the salaries and wages, what is the 43.5 that
I think that's Chris and my wages because we'll still be managing
okay.
and a percentage of ours goes into.
And that's why you have the 13,000 PERS then?
Yes. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Next, the development department, general fund,
Okay.
32.
Jeff Adams' responsibility, but he's not here.
Speaking.
What page are you on?
So, but Jeff did prepare this budget before he left. So. I came
Which page is that?
32. So the FTEs in the community development department are 2.75. And so that's the personnel cost, 402,000. What you see here is pretty much the same, except for there's well, it's actually a decrease, but we have code audit has come down a little bit from last year's budget. Jeff estimates 100,000 for the current year, I think, just to finish that up. And then you'll see professional fees here. That's legal. That's 130,000. And the reason it's the same is in the adopted budget column is because that includes the budget adjustment I referred to earlier. And so the adopted budget column includes any budget changes that we make during the year. So you can see that he's keeping that the same. Pretty much the CREST regional planning support. That's exactly what it says. If we utilize CREST services, he's got that again at 40,000. The hazard mitigation advance is Ecola North Bank stabilization project. And then software and maintenance, that's for the short-term rental property where you can look up and see if someone's renting or not, and if they have a permit or not. And then basically that's about it there.
Can you explain that last line item?
The hazard.
STRs, software maintenance, $20,000.
Yeah, that's software that we have that you can identify properties and see if they're renting short-term rentals with, so we get complaints that there's a short-term rental in the community and some of the neighbors may think that they are not permitted for that use. So that's a way of us making sure that everybody's following our code.
Could we do that with just a spreadsheet? It's only 200 lines long. It's only
These are-
200 short-term rentals.
It helps us identify people we don't know. So,
There are people that, if I understand it, go online and see if they can rent in Cannon Beach. And then check to make sure that they're on our list. Is that still correct?
The software is an aggregator, so it'll go out to like Craigslist and Airbnb and Expedia and all the hundreds of OTAs out there. And it will show that, oh, that house is not registered, and that's how you do it. So it's more than just a spreadsheet.
And I think it's been very effective.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's a big number. I mean,
It pays for itself, though.
But it's also necessary.
Yeah.
We didn't have it before, and I see where you're going with this, and maybe that's something we need to look at in the future. But I think if you were to try and dedicate staff time to do that, you'd have a bigger number.
Greg, you seem to know something
Right here,
about this.
20,000.
I mean, if Airbnb is percent of the ballgame for STRs, you can't determine a address on an Airbnb unless you're the counterparty.
Well, I don't know.
I say it says someone who has 5 short-term rentals.
Yeah, so
In this town, but
I don't know exactly how FTR Helper does it, but it syncs up with what is registered. So if you have a house on, let's say Airbnb, and it says this house is for rent, it can tell you whether or not it's in compliance of, like here where we have a 14-day rule, or if you had a whatever, some other kind of rule. There's watermark features. I don't think anybody here uses that. And I don't think it's address based. I think it's based on what is registered in with the city. I've just sat through some seminars on how it works and stuff because it's a pretty interesting tool. I don't know it intimately.
Is there a fine if someone does it illegally?
Yeah, it's
It's
paid for itself.
It has. That was my question.
Yeah.
Okay.
So who's enforcing this?
City.
community development.
Well, I'm asking since we don't have a code enforcer, so this falls under.
We do now.
Department? We do?
Yes.
Oh, yay.
Officially?
Oh, I'm not gonna go there.
Monday, or actually next Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
And you already know the person, by the way.
We already know the person.
Mhm.
Oh.
Are you willing to believe them?
So
Not as much as y'all want to know it. Something you,
Tuesday then.
you'll have to wait till Tuesday. and go, oh, I knew him.
Bruce, can you just give us the mechanics of how this has helped resolve the situation?
I'm not that closely familiar with it, so I would ask Lori, do you know, or is it was something that happened?
I
in
used to know a lot about it and then I've selectively forgotten. So because Jeff is running the program, he was running the program, his department was handling all of that. So I just, initially I brought it up to Jeff and council and thought it would be a good resource for us to keep on top of things. And so we bought the software and then I just kind of like, okay, you guys can go with
I can find out for the next meeting.
But we should have a number of the fines we've collected as a result of this, no?
Yes,
What is that number?
I don't know it offhand.
It could be $20,000 a year because, I mean, I've seen the STR numbers and they're tiny numbers of complaints, fines and infractions.
Mhm. Yeah, let me go back and find out more for next time.
Be interesting.
I mean, if it comes to $200 a year, I'd be surprised.
Well,
Because I've seen,
But you don't
I've seen
want-
the STR data.
and I think that one of the things we're looking at is that if we do nothing, it'll be pretty easy to go ahead and work around us. So we at least need to know that we are looking to see if there are people that are doing it illegally, because we get the complaints on it. And I don't even know how we would be able to check the system, but well, let me find out for the next time.
Lori, I just have a question on the consultant, 62450, the professional fees you said was legal. Is that's not, obviously not paying for Marcy and Bill. Is that for when we have a lawsuit?
Bill,
Oh, just,
Code audit pays for Marcy,
I mean, yeah, I don't mean Marcy. I mean,
Bill.
Ashley.
Ashley and Bill. Yeah,
not Ashley,
not Ashley. This just pays, okay.
Bill.
Okay, so then what about for legal fees, lawsuits, for example? Where does that show up?
I don't think Jeff budgets for those.
It's what, I think it's the 130, isn't it?
It's one turn, I think.
Well, I guess that's considered a legal fee, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a
It
separate,
can't be for Bill and all the lawsuits we've had.
yeah, it could be, yeah, if you want.
Just raised it to 130.
Huh? It just,
That's why the 130, that's what, I don't know what it was before, but it wasn't 130 in the adopted budget we're in now. We had to adjust it to 130.
Yes.
It says 130 in the adopted
It's one
budget.
30.
Right, no, but that's because it's been adjusted.
Oh,
Is that, this gets
Correct.
right?
There should be a way again to see what we've spent on bill versus what we spent on other attorneys for lawsuits, correct?
Yes.
We haven't had a lawsuit.
well, we've
The
been
only-
involved in several lawsuits. The
No.
planning department.
Right, right. But on that's, on the planning side, yes, we've been involved with several lawsuits. We can give you that information. Not in the general side, I don't think, unless it was something that was resolved by the insurance company.
Right. I don't remember any big payouts. I would
Right.
remember that.
Yeah.
So,
So
so that 130 reflects all the things that Bill does, including defending us in court.
Mhm.
Wow, okay. Seems like a bargain.
Yeah.
It does. And then the code audit money. I'm just curious, it seems like it's down from last year because you said but it seems to me like we're just, barely into the code audit and we're using Marcy so much more now.
there are a couple things that potentially will change that. For example, right now, we're talking about taking on a couple of additional consultants and including wetlands and some other things. But that stuff those discussions have occurred since we completed the budget.
Oh, okay, okay,
So there will be adjustments as we go forward.
okay. Thanks.
Building fund. I actually prepared the building fund.
What page?
Let me look here. 59. So in the building fund, we have total resources of $734,700. And I look at past trends, actual data to estimate these fees. We've been getting a lot of income from our building inspector working at other cities, and I didn't budget for that because I don't think that we're going to be doing that much anymore. But in the past, we've had some pretty good funding come in from that. So that's made the budget here pretty healthy. And so there's 1.25 FTEs here. It's $189,000 total. And then the materials and services, you see the admin services coming in here. And then pretty much I just kept the last year's numbers in here. I looked back and it's pretty reasonable. Rarely exceed these numbers in any line. So I felt pretty good about just repeating those costs for next year. And then we have a contingency of 20% and an ending fund balance of $408,361. So it's quite healthy. And it's cyclical, the construction industry. So to have those contingencies on hand and the fund balance, for future years, if we have to support staff, but not have as many permit revenues come in.
There's, in the county, there's generally been, you could probably verify this, Brandon, but it seems that 3 out of the 5 have a building official at any particular time. And then we either rent or borrow or whatever.
It's a complete revolving.
Yeah.
Absolutely what you're saying. Yeah.
So, example, we've got something coming up that Alton's not going to be here for a short period of time and will be covered by the county.
We cover electrical with the county, I think.
Yeah.
But Lori, can you talk about the unrestricted fund balance here? What does that envision?
You're at the top of the.
Yeah.
That's a carryover that we're anticipating.
I know, but what, we keep a fund balance because, finish that sentence.
Well, in this fund, we just have a beginning fund balance because of what I said. We're bringing in a lot of permit revenues and Alton's work, in other cities. And we've accumulated those revenues and we're not spending them.
And they're restricted.
So that they are restricted.
They're very much, yeah, we can buy the building official a car. We can't buy somebody else a car.
I'm sorry, say that again.
We can spend money on like buying the building official a car, but we can't buy the police chief a car. It's all the funds that come in have to stay within that. It's a state restriction.
So the council has no say over this money, essentially.
Yeah, I think the only say you could have is that you could reduce rates. So that you're actually operating at a loss and then you can go ahead and make up for it on the, with the unrestricted balance. But there's no other use you can have that's not related to the building official.
But how do you operate at a loss if you have to have a balanced budget?
There be transfers in from the reserve.
So the transfer in from the.
Then you have to transfer it in, yeah.
You use these.
Yeah.
The unrestricted fund balance would be less.
Yeah.
And that unrestricted,
I don't recommend we do that. I don't know if I've ever done it.
Yeah.
but that unrestricted fund balance could also be used to entice somebody from another from somewhere else, building official to come here and work for us full time.
Yeah. If you can find one.
Really? Is that difficult even all over the state?
Nationwide.
Yeah.
Oh, nationwide.
Building. officials.
Really?
Yeah. I was really excited because Alton, Alton's son is the only young building official I've ever met. And I don't know if he's still in the business. He interned here for a while.
And is there like a lot of training? There must be.
A lot of training and experience. I think what happened is on the contractor side, they weren't happy that somebody was coming in that didn't have the same experience they did and being, evaluated by that. And so they started putting heavy requirements, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brandon, but as far as experiential requirements in order to be able to do, like, for example, I think that we do electrical.
We don't.
You do not.
We do not. Okay, well, somebody else will come in and do electrical for us. I don't know if it's even something that Alton can get at this point.
Huh.
It used to be that building officials had traditionally a engineering background,
Oh,
and through
that makes sense.
whatever reason, it's gone to less experience in the engineering field. And so they take these classes to get the certification, and literally anybody can do it. And once you have the certification, you can be this building official, but
Wow.
it's not enticing people to do the job.
Hmm.
For whatever reason.
Yeah, no, I misspoke, because that was a situation that we had in Florida is what I was referring to, and I thought it was similar here. So I misspoke.
Situation.
In Florida, you have to have the experience Oh, so you, to be the air conditioning guy, you had to have been an air conditioning guy. Okay.
No, we were just lucky that people like the Seaside Building official, Bob
Mitchell.
Mitchell,
Yeah.
excellent
Right,
engineering background.
yeah,
Help you, give you all sorts of advice, even though he wasn't maybe supposed to, but
right.
it just seems like every person that comes now and is doing the job is perhaps been in the construction trade, but not necessarily an engineer.
It's too bad.
But we're certain about this, it's a one-way valve in for money, and money can't go out.
Do I have that right, Lori?
You have that very,
Okay.
yes.
What if you don't put any money in and you just use the reserve to fund the?
That would be just reducing the fees to zero. The public would benefit.
Yeah.
No, I mean, from the city standpoint, are we putting money into the
You mean,
general fund
are we subsidizing the building fund?
of the $476,000?
That's working capital, if you
Mhm.
will. It's accumulated because we don't have expenses that are more than our revenues. So
I just wanted,
it's like net income.
we're not adding.
It's not being spent.
From the general fund.
No, absolutely not. Now, in city of Warrenton, we used to have the general fund subsidize our building department because we didn't have enough permit revenue coming in. So it's cyclical and
It hasn't always been like this.
Mhm.
We're coming off several very robust years. It's been down in the past.
yeah. So then we can survive that period of time on this ending fund balance. Okay, any other questions on the building department?
Housing fund?
Affordable housing. Page 62. So we implemented a construction excise tax, I don't know, back in 2018. For an affordable housing program, and this is paid through the permit process. When you construct. And I think it's making some major improvements. Can't recall, but. So not very much is going on in this fund. We have accumulated $261,000 here. And you can see that's in the fund balance at the top. I'm estimating we'll get $34,000 next year. And have 50% of the residential excise tax is earmarked for builder incentive programs.
What is that? What is that?
It's where you can reduce like permit fees as a builder incentive to provide affordable housing
Okay.
We did that.
or other.
Sea Lark.
Sea Lark is the only program that's ever participated here, is that right?
In this, source of funds, yes.
It's a fund of one at this point.
Right, and there's not a whole lot in there to,
And then the other 100,000 is for a city program, if we were to develop that in-house, have an affordable housing program. And that's yet to be defined, but that's the other use.
What is the expenditure at the bottom of 61? Am I in the wrong place?
Oh, we're on page 62.
Okay, what's the expenditure at the bottom of 61? 287.
You sure it's 61 you're on?
Those are budgeted expenditures, not actual expenditures, just like I have in this current budget. We're budgeting for expenditures, 246,000. But we never spend any money. We can if we need to, because now this is giving the city spending authority.
Lori, what is the contractual services? 23.5, what is that for? Is that,
That's just if we need to hire someone to help us out.
we don't have anything definite?
Nothing earmarked, no, not at this time. It's just there in case we need it or something comes up.
The ET refund.
We had an issue where we were charging the excise tax on permits that we weren't allowed to charge. And the error was discovered, I think, when we had a staffing change. And so we had to go through all the permits and refund the payments that they made that they should not have made. So we had to get some money back.
Where is that in?
Right here, there's no expenditures.
Oh,
It's there because they have.
oh, yeah.
Any questions? We're up to Haystack Rock Awareness,
Page
29.
29.
How much longer does everybody want to go on? 'Cause-
2 minutes.
Minute or two?
Yeah, because we've kind of covered what we thought we were going to. And we're doing a couple of extras, but if we want to wait and we've got some questions that we said we would answer at the next meeting, we can bring that information back. And then finish up the departments because I didn't put everybody on notice that they would have to be here. Some of them I said, we'll do you at the second meeting. We're kind
And
of,
are we approaching that, Bruce?
and we've kind of hit it.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to drag somebody in here that is.
Yeah.
Speak.
Right. So what is the date for the next meeting?
Next Thursday,
Yeah,
1:00.
next Thursday at 1, we can pick this up again.
We're gonna hold on Haystack Rock awareness.
Yeah, we'll start with that. Because Kelly's not here to do it.
And I won't be here next, so it'll be recorded. So
Yes.
Actually, I do have a question on Haystack Rock awareness from the general fund on page 17. And I don't know, just wondering why the wide variation. One year is over 46,000, and then we've got years that are 22,000, 22,000.
What page are you on again?
Looking at 17. It's the general fund.
Oh, you're looking at materials and services?
No, the top group.
that's HRAP?
There's HRAP is in 2 places. There's one in the top row. On reference to,
Okay, all right, I see.
Yeah, the 4th item down under general fund on page 17.
Right.
That's your beginning.
so at the bottom. Is that what you're referring to, Gary?
No,
That's at the top.
that's top.
Okay,
Okay, at the top of page 17 are revenues. So those are revenues coming into the HRAP program.
I gotcha. Okay. Easy answer, right?
And does that include
We had a good year.
from Friends of Haystack Rock?
It's primarily from that source.
Okay.
I just want to ask my question again now that Bruce is back. Where, if anywhere in the budget, is the new city sign reflected?
The welcome to Cannon Beach. The infamous welcome to
All
Cannon.
right, the infamous, it's not reflected. We had given money to the chamber to do it. I think they turned the money back in. Honestly, we can make that a higher priority. But with everything that we have going on, are we trying to get more people to come into town?
Well, it looks a little,
Yeah. I would almost knock the other one down and,
that would be better.
yeah, yes, and what it's reflecting.
Knock it down.
Yes.
Because it's not a good reflection of our city.
Yeah,
So you're talking the posts that's at the north end.
Bottom post
Right.
that's sitting there.
I could take care of that tonight.
I got
More power to you.
Yeah, didn't see the headlines of the paper.
yeah. Let me take another look at it.
It does look, I agree. And somehow I look at it too all the time and I think,
For some reason, my eye just immediately goes there. That and the thing that wrote out is responsible for it.
but they pretty much have that fixed except for they haven't set up all the arrows,
Okay.
which I do look at, count the numbers there.
Is it appropriate, since I won't be here next week, if I just say something about the line item for the sea turtles? Just what my opinion is, just, even though I won't be here for any discussion on it. Well, I just am hoping that they will get one last chance to, and be given some money with stipulation and a liaison maybe from the council who'd be willing to help keep track of it. Because I think there's such a great program. I can see a huge disconnect between two people who presented today and doing that kind of administrative thing. They just don't, but they need to learn to do it. And I think that we ought to give them a chance to, on some level, to learn to do it again, to do it properly. And the stipulation would be that if the biology says they should pick up debris, pick it up. If it says no, they don't. I mean, we just, really have it firmed up. But that's just my 2 cents. I feel really strongly about it, though, that it shouldn't just be cut out entirely.
On that note, we were gonna hear from some officials, and I was hoping to
Right.
hear more than just pick up debris or don't pick up debris. I would like a little more overall picture of the problem of ocean plastics, which is obviously huge, and what would be the best use of our resources to address that.
I'm not sure we're gonna be that out by next week.
No. The whole ocean plastics problem is huge, but we're just talking about picking up stuff on the beach.
And the thing I want us to remember is that we're not quantifying the value of sea turtles forever. It's the process that we're giving them funds for, and it becomes very personal.
Sure.
Because people are passionate about it, and that's a good thing. But we have to have guidelines, and those guidelines have to be followed.
I'll say it a different way. If we're gonna spend X amount, was it a budget item for 10,000?
10,000 line.
Well, what's the best use of $10,000 to address the problem of ocean plastics?
Oh, we can solve that by next week. I'll be.
You'll cancel.
To NRDC.
Yeah, right. That's probably.
We'll solve that by next week. We'll be impressed with ourselves.
Yeah,
That would be the headline.
that'll make the headlines in the papers. But yeah, just so.
Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Thank you for.